In 1976, disaffected youth found a new and powerful voice. Punk rock was more than just music. Punk was style. Punk was attitude. Punk was angry. Punk was nasty. Some said it would undermine the very fabric of society. Some said it was the start of the revolution. And some said, turn that radiogram off and put some proper clothes on. Your gran will be here in a minute. Alan Parker is the self-confessed chronicler of punk. And he's got ever so lot of stuff in his flat. Watch out, UK! Alan, it all started with a shop.
It did. It started with a clothes shop in the unfashionable end of King's Road, where called Sex, where Glenn Matlock was the Saturday lad, Steve Jones and Paul Cook, and John Lydon, as he was in those days, just called in one day and was so bizarre they decided to keep him and not let him go home. So.
And the shop was owned by Malcolm McLaren.
Malcolm McLaren and Vivian Westwood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in case you haven't gathered, we are talking about the Sex Pistols. When did you come into it? Because you were a bit young to be a punk, weren't you?
I was. Either unfortunately or fortunately, I'd never been interested in anything else but music. The reality is I just was probably jaded by the time I was about 11 and a half. I got sick of like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. I just thought, yeah, it's time for something new. And this lot arrived in my life.
What was it about them that was so totally different from anything that had gone before?
When you're a kid, I think your ambition is to upset your parents. And just knowing you could take a 7-inch piece of plastic into your house and temporarily ruin your parents' lives for 24 hours, it was like Valhalla. It was like, brilliant, we've won, the revolution starts tomorrow. It came from a time, there'd been a rubbish strike for 18 months. Half the country was on a 3-day week, there were power cuts. Something needed kicking and kicking hard, and I think that's what they did,
Yeah.
They created national hatred, and that's hard to do.
Let's have a look at some of the stuff you've got.
Okay.
I love this.
That's the Russian copy of the album We Do Not Speak Its Name.
You've got the Sex Pistols fanzine.
It was going to be, that was the intention. Glitter Best Management, who managed the Sex Pistols, were going to have their own sort of bulletins from the front line almost,
Yeah.
And they were going to call it Anarchy in the UK and produce it monthly. But after the first issue had been put together, everyone at Glitter Best got bored with the idea of having a magazine, so they never put a second issue out. so the update from the front line only ever happened once. That was it.
What's the Barbie doll?
That's probably the day my mother decided that it really was time to buy a straitjacket that fit me. I just heard they'd done a Sid Vicious Action Man, which came in its own coffin. I thought, yeah, I've got to have one of them. This particular one I'm quite a fan of. It's the Japanese test pressing of the Great Rock and Roll Swindle double album.
Yeah.
And what makes it quite funny is, due to a cock-up at the record company, they thought that a certain track that happened to exist on a master tape at the time was part of the Sex Pistols, and it's actually an outtake from a Beethoven symphonic album. So it's weird to have a Sex Pistols album in your collection that contains a piece of music that my gran would be quite happy listening to.
Your bonus track.
My bonus track, yeah.
Does the music continue? I mean, has it got a future?
It's one of those things, you were either in or you weren't, and if I suppose it's once you're on a bandwagon, and certainly once you've been sat on it as long as I have, it might be a bit difficult to jump off. So,
well, may punk live forever?
Well, that's all we've got time for today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.
Well, due to a lengthy day at the races tomorrow afternoon, Collector's Lot will be back on Monday at the usual time, 3 o'clock. And we're at the races next today, Sandown Park to be precise, but the only race is to get your picture finished on time in Watercolour Challenge.